Hi, I'm here with a review of We Have Always Been Here by Samra Habib, and I'm doing this review in two parts. The first half of this video will be a traditional review, and the second half is going to be talking about this book in the context of the Canada Reads 2020 debates. So let's get into it. So this book was written by Samra Habib, and it will be defended by Amanda Brugel. So this is the autobiography or memoir of Samra Habib, beginning with her childhood in Pakistan, growing up in the Muslim minority sect of the Ahmadi Muslims, coming to Canada as a refugee with her family as a young girl, and then discovering herself through racism, her parents' religious and cultural beliefs, sexuality, and her career. And this is actually subtitled A Queer Muslim Memoir. So obviously we know what Samra identifies as before reading, but it's about the journey to get there. So there's three standout things that I look for in books. That's writing, character development, and theme. So let's talk about We Have Always Been There in regards to those things. In regards to the writing, Samra is very succinct in her writing. She's able to get her point across in just a few pages and then move on to something else. And I really appreciate that she trusts her readers to get something without hammering away at it repeatedly. I actually found this book to be very readable. In regards to characters, we are talking about real-life characters, not fictional characters. She doesn't pander to her family or to herself even. She isn't afraid to show both them and herself negatively. However, I do wish we got to know the people around her a bit better. I do understand that this is a memoir and the author is concentrating on herself and the effects others have on her, but I think that would have been more effective if we had gotten a better picture of the other people. In regards to themes, there's two that I'd like to concentrate on. The first is identity. So throughout We Have Always Been There, Samra has to hide her identity for fear of persecution. You know, in Pakistan, Ahmadi Muslims were politically persecuted to the point that they couldn't even call themselves Muslims or present themselves as Muslims without facing a jail sentence. In Canada, she faced racism while in school, and then she didn't even realize herself that she was queer, and when she did, she hid that from her family for fear of being shunned by them. And this memoir is really about the struggle, but also the beauty in accepting your identity. And another theme is sexuality and religion. Yes, the connection between those two things. Because there are so many people who believe that you can't be LGBT+ and believe in God or belong to a church. And it's such a hateful stance that I don't think any God would tolerate. And Samra demonstrates that you can both believe in God and be yourself. One of the standout features of this book is that Samra's not afraid to call people out, including herself. And I especially like this quote that I'm going to read you that calls out Canada as a whole. I often found people back home in Toronto to be apathetic and apolitical, perhaps a result of the comfort and ambivalence that advanced queer rights can breed. Many Canadians who enjoyed the fruits of decades of activism did not see any need to advocate for the rights of queer and trans people of color. In my experience, progress in many circles had given way to passivity. When I launched my photo project, which is called Just Me and Allah, and I'll link it down below, someone actually asked me if there was even a need for it, because things are so great in Canada for queers, what's left to fight for? And this isn't even just for LGBT+ rights. Too many Canadians believe that everything in Canada is honky-dory, that we're better than the Americans, so there's nothing that we can improve upon. And they're just turning a blind eye to all of the current injustices in Canada, and I like that Samra calls people out on this. One of the negative features of this book, however, is that some of the people in Samra's life felt flat, particularly her siblings. There's a point in the memoir where she imagines a perfect life for her and her family, and her siblings actually felt more real and more developed in that imaginary life than they did in her real life. I want to share two quotes from this book. The first is, "Maybe home was simply any place where you felt seen and welcome." And I think that's important, being able to be felt seen for who you truly are. And lastly, this is a piece of good instruction that I think everyone should follow, and that is leave young people in a better state than you found them in. I think it's so important, and it's the goal of every generation to have the next generation have an easier and a better life. And you know, we can talk about that broadly in terms of doing better for young people as a whole, and also personally, you know, if you encounter a young person and you have the opportunity to improve their well-being, that you should do so. So now I'm going to talk about this book in context of Canada Reads. So does this book fit within the theme for this year? And the theme for this year is a book to bring Canada into focus. And I believe this book does do that. I think both issues of prejudice against brown immigrants and against queer people are issues that are not often discussed in Canada, and this book brings both of those issues into focus. Readers will be forced to confront their own passivity in regards to racism and intolerance. You know, I know personally after reading this, I felt the need to step up even more in regards to defending brown people against the casual racism I encounter in day-to-day life. Is this a book that I think all Canadians can or should read? I think this is definitely a book that all Canadians should read. There's an unspoken acceptance of racism against brown people in Canada. So many people are so ready to complain about Pakis, which is a blanket term that they use to talk about any brown person, regardless of whether they're from Pakistan or not. About how they're taking all the jobs and how much money our government unfairly gives to refugees and immigrants, and it just smacks of so much ignorance. And I think that reading about Samra's experiences would show just how difficult it is for refugees, and actually also how similar Samra's life is for a lot of other Canadians, including themselves, and how horrible it is to face that racism. So what do I think of the person defending this book? The person defending this book is Amanda Brugel, who is an actress. I actually recognize her as Pastor Nina from Kim's Convenience, which if you haven't seen it, you should. It is a great, funny sitcom. But she's also been in The Handmaid's Tale as Rita. She's been in Orphan Black, and she's been in Working Moms. And she seems to be a very proud Canadian, but not in that arrogant way. And I think she'll be a great defender for this book. So where in the competition do I think this book will place? I think this book actually has a good chance of winning because it's an issue that will generate a lot of discussion if it's done right. And I sincerely hope that Amanda brings up the issue of racism and that gets discussed thoroughly.